Scarlet and Violet introduced Titan Pokemon. Then a 10-year-old comes along and beats them all. But I think instead we need to team up. And to make it harder, we'll give ourselves some rough rules. Now, since the first Titan Pokemon is Klawf, we've got to quickly get past that and defeat it. Once it's defeated, we can actually end up catching it itself. Unfortunately, we're over the KT level cap. However, as a rock type, obviously we would have destroyed this anyway. Now, the next trainer we're going to take on is going to be Brassius, who actually has an amazing counter for us, so we need to think hard about a strategy. I have an idea for it though, so let us get right on into the battle. We're going to start out by using a Swords Dance. Unfortunately, the Petalil is going to use a Sleep Powder here though. This means next turn I'll be asleep so it can get off a Mega Drain for decent damage. Luckily though, next turn I am going to wake up and can Rock Tomb, taking it out. Can then use a Stealth Rocks as we're going to get hit with a Razor Leaf, and that's going to activate our Anger Shell ability, upping all our stats except our defenses, which gets lowered. I then miss the following Rock Tomb, so it's game over. Oh wait, he missed his Razor Leaf too. Okay, we can now use a Rock Tomb and take the Smoliv out. Sudowoodo comes in and gets the stones to break its sturdy as it terrestrializes into the grass type. Unfortunately though, a +3 Rock Tomb doesn't take it out, and that is going to allow him to get a Trailblaze off, unfortunately finishing us off. Not a great start, but I think I can just do a tweak to my planning and then we'll get through it. That tweak being, at the very start, we're going to use an X-Scissor so we don't risk getting put to sleep. Then against the Smoliv, we can Stealth Rock as it misses a Razor Leaf again. Not ideal though, because I want it to be lower on health. I then Swords Dance as it hits into us with a Razor Leaf. But the next turn, I need to do this again because it didn't knock me low enough to the point my Anger Shell hit. Obviously, at +4, it's going to get taken down here. Then Sudowoodo comes out. Obviously, Stealth Rocks break the sturdy, and that's going to allow us to finish it off with one last X-Scissor after the terrestrialization. That's a well-earned second gym badge, if you ask me. We then got the next Titan being Bomberdier, but obviously we have the perfect counter for it being a rock type, so we get rid of it fairly quickly. This is going to open us up to being able to catch our second Pokemon, being that exact Bomberdier though. And without further ado, let us get on to the first team star battle, being against Giacomo. We need 3 people. Well, I guess Florigato can join us for at least a little bit. As I was saying, that leads us into the first team star battle, being against Giacomo. He's gonna lead Pawniard, and obviously our Klawf is going to take the lead here. One mighty Brick Break is all it takes down to finish the Pawniard off. After this, out comes his Rivalry. It's gonna try and snarl us, but we are not using special attack, therefore we can retaliate with a Brick Break. It then Wicked Talks into us, but our Brick Break is doing a bit more damage thanks to the Metronome item we had. And then it's gonna snarl into us again and activate our Anger Shell, upping our attack even more. Therefore, we're gonna hit it very hard on the next turn. Lost on a lot, so I don't think it deserves to go down, so let's switch into Bomberdier, who tanks a snarl. The dark moves really aren't doing too much to us, and guess what? Our Pluck does more than enough for us to take it down in 2 hits. Then we're gonna have the joy of taking on Nemona, and unfortunately we're getting caught in the rain. We can Trailblaze into the Rockruff, and it wastes its turn by going for a Howl. This means we will take it down on the next turn. Ormy then comes out, but we're faster than it, so 1 Bulldoze is all we need to finish it off. Then out comes our Nightmare, being Quaxwell, because we're in the rain. And once she uses Terrestrialization, she hits that much harder. We use Trailblaze because it's super effective, but we only do a third as it retaliates with a Water Pulse and one-shots us. We still have Bomberdier, so let's see if we can beat it. We're going to come in, we'll use a Pluck, and it isn't quite enough as Water Pulse knocks us heavily and confuses us. We do hit through on the next turn and knock it to a Slither. However, it's in Torrent now, so the Water Pulse does more damage and finishes us off. Yeah, we got our second loss to Nemona of all people. But a loss makes us want to do far better, which is great against Iono because she is one of the toughest gym leaders in the series. She's going to lead Wattrel as we're going to lead Klawf. We're going to Swords Dance into her, and then she's going to Spark and unfortunately get the paralysis. Luckily, we equipped a berry to solve this though. You have to risk it one more time though by going for a second Swords Dance. And luckily, this spark does not end up paralyzing us. Then we can just hit it with a rock tomb, and obviously we're going to take it out. Belly Bolt is next, so we switch to Bulldoze, which one-shots the beefy boy. And you know exactly what happens to Luxio here, because the Intimidate doesn't manage to help him. Finally, though, we do have to take on Miss Magius. Once she terrestrializes into the electric typing, she actually has no weakness thanks to her Levitate, and she's faster, so it's going to confuse Rayos, which we end up hitting ourselves. Not good. She then hexes on the next turn, and that almost takes us out, but this time we hit through with Rock Tomb. Unfortunately, she just survives as well, though. Klawf, you've done as well. You're not going down here, so let's switch into Bomberdier on the hex, allowing us to retaliate on the next turn and finish it off with a pluck. That can then lead us into the next team star member being against Mela. We're going to start off the first turn by using a Rain Dance, making the incoming Flame Wheel do far less damage. From there, we can Rock Blast, and I actually gave Klawf the loaded die, which means it hits a minimum of 4 times. A Clear Smog on the next turn isn't going to do much to us, and we're going to retaliate by taking it out. Then out comes her Reveroom, and it uses Overheat and actually manages to crit, but still does pitiful damage. I retaliated with a Bulldoze trying to lower its speed, but I forgot its speed boost at the end of every turn will just negate that anyway. It then is going to go for a Blazing Torque into us as we're going to start using our Rock Blasts. Knowing it's in dire straits, it goes for a Screech, but it's a bit too late. We literally knock it to the red this turn, and that's it for this. Even though it does get us to the point of knocking out Anger Shell and burning us, it's far too low, so we can take it out for free with a Bulldoze, as that won't miss. We then have the Orthworm battle, but Orthworm is Orthworm, and currently it doesn't really have any moves that do much to Klawf because we're pretty defensive and we're rock type. Makes it a very easy matchup. But even though it was easy for us to take down, it does allow us to now get him on our team. Although he's not exactly the greatest person to be using against the next gym leader being Kofu. We're going to lead Bomberdier as he leads with his The Loser. We can set up a Hone Claws, raising our attack and accuracy, as an Aqua Cutter doesn't do too much. The turns end up repeating with the exception of him critting us, making it so we have to use our Appa Berry. Thanks to that berry, we can survive one more hit, so we use a Tailwind. We've raised our attack enough where we can get off an Acrobatics against it and one-shot. We then have the Wug Trio come out, and we're gonna attack that and take it out, but unfortunately it's physical, so Gooey will lower our speed. However, that's why we used the Tailwind before, because we're actually still faster. Unfortunately, though, because of the crit all the way at the start, we couldn't get off the last workup we needed to one-shot the Crabominable, so we are gonna go down here. And I mocked Orthworm at the start, but he's the best one to have. We switch in, one headbutt, and Crabominable goes down. King of the worms indeed. But we're not stopping here, though. We're gonna go into the next fight being against Atticus and his poison types. Fun little fact about Atticus. Basically, none of his Pokemon can even do any damage to Orthworm. The Steel typing makes it so poison moves don't work, and the ones that have ground, the Earth Eater ability, chokes it up. The only exception being Skunktank's Sucker Punch, but we can just use Iron Defenses and Sandstorms 5 times until he's run out. Once he's run out, we can just start body pressing, which is going to get through all 3 of his main Pokemon in one shot, leading to the Reveroom. Unfortunately for the Reveroom, though, it's raining, so the only move it has is Flame Charge, and as you can see, it's doing nothing to us here. So it ends up just being time for us to do a bit of waiting, and eventually we end up taking it out, still on pretty decent health. Well, let's get into the next battle, being against Larry. We're going to start off with an Acrobatics from Bomberdier, doing decent damage to the Kamala as it uses a Yawn to make us drowsy. From here, I decide just to end up taking it out. However, because Acrobatics needs no item, we do go to sleep and stay that way. On the Dunsparce, though, all we need to do is switch into Orthworm, and it really can't touch us. This allows us to use a Body Press, doing decent damage to it as it uses a Glare. Next turn, it will end up using Drill Run, but our Earth Eater means that it's put us back to full health, and we don't get paralyzed, so we can take it out. Next up is going to be Staraptor. and it gets off an Intimidate. Luckily, Body Press uses your defense, though. It hits us with a Facade, which doesn't do too much damage, but now we are paralyzed. It hits us again, and this time we get our Body Press off. And luckily for us, Paralysis has a low chance in hitting us. Therefore, we're going to win the battle with one more turn. Seems Orthworm is the MVP for the mid-game of Scarlet and Violet. Now, though, it's time for some revenge. Nemona decides she's going to battle us again. Because we're stuck in with Bomberdier, we do have to switch off the bat into Klawf, who actually takes the Accelerock not too well. It's then going to hit into us with it again as we Swords Dance. After this, it's going to attack into us with Bite, knocking us under half, meaning it activates our Anger Shell ability, but unfortunately, we are going to flinch here. Now that we're faster, though, guess what? One Brick Break will get rid of this little Lycanroc. Goomy's Goomy, so we'll obviously fall to a Rock Blast. Next up is Pomo, and its fighting type means Rock Blast isn't worth going for, so we're going to Brick Break into it, and it does end up being a crit. However, it would have taken out regardless. Out last is her Quaquaval. Obviously, it terrestrializes, but it's got no rain to back it up this time. And with terrestrialization, it loses its fighting type, allowing a Rock Blast to go off and hit 5 times, taking the bugger out. Not too great, are we now, Nemona? We have defeated you with basically one Pokemon. One person we can't beat with one Pokemon, though, is going to be Rhyme, and that's because she makes us do a double battle. Rhyme's going to start off by using Mimikyu to attack into my Klawf with a crit on a Shadow Sneak. And then the Banette is going to Sucker Punch Bomberdier. Bomberdier is going to retaliate with a Payback, taking out the Banette. And Klawf is going to Rock Blast into Mimikyu, but unfortunately, it's not quite enough to take it out. Next turn, Klawf is Shadow Sneaked into, again activating its Anger Shell ability. And that means the following Rock Blast is going to wipe out Mimikyu. Unfortunately, though, Bombardier's Thief into Houndstone doesn't quite take it out, allowing it to use a Play Rough into Bombardier, doing awesome damage. Toxtricity is gonna end up terrestrializing, and unfortunately, Klawf misses the Rock Blast. However, it's fine because Bombardier's Thief will take it out. Houndstone then vanishes. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to let Klawf down. We'll switch into Orthworm, and Bombardier misses a Thief, obviously, as the Phantom Force hits into the Worm. Now Houndstone's out in the open, though. All it takes is one Payback, and it will go down. And now that's done, it's time for us to battle to get into our next encounter against Great Tusk. It rapid spins first turn as I misclick going for Payback. The next turn, it's gonna rapid spin again, and this time I use Acrobatics. As you can see, 2 of them would have done the job. And yeah, it's faster and can use Brick Break, which is neutral against us. Therefore, we're gonna lose Bombardier here and have to switch into Orthworm. Orthworm is also going to get hit pretty heavily, though, and knocked into the red. Not enough, though, as a Body Press can now be hit into it and win us the battle. But we need a tough bugger like this guy on our team, so let us go and catch the Great Tusk. New team member means we're more than ready for the next fight against Nemona. Lycanroc is going to use a Rock Slide, doing mega damage to us, but we can Trailblaze to up our speed and knock it just over half. We can then Trailblaze again, but it's not quite enough to take it out, so what it's going to do here is hit us with another Rock Slide, doing awesome damage, but activating Anger Shell. Even without the Anger Shell going off, we would have taken it down this turn, though. Sliggoo is then going to come out, but obviously that's going to go down to a Rock Blast. And I forgot Bulldoze, so when Pomo comes out, we're actually going to switch out and into Bombardier. I did this because I was expecting a close combat, but it did end up going for Spark, doing a lot of damage. Guaranteeing a Spark's coming, we can now switch into our new 10 member, being a Great Tusk, and obviously it's not going to affect it thanks to its ground typing. It hits us with a quick attack, not doing too much, as I use a rapid spin to up our speed. It's going to get a bit more chip damage on us, but we're going to retaliate with a Stomping Tantrum, taking it out. Next up is Quaquaval, who's going to end up terrestrializing into the Water type, and our Brick Break only does about half damage as it uses Aqua Step into us. Thanks to the rapid spin from before, we are faster on this next turn, so one more Brick Break knocks it incredibly low, but here Great Tusk will go down. Thankfully for us, we can bring out Orthworm, and it's got a beefy defense, meaning it won't get taken out here, and we can use a Body Slam and finish it off. We then have the emotional spectrum test, and as you can see, Bomberdier has a lot of emotion. That will lead us on to the next battle, being against Tulip and her psychic types. Unfortunately for Tulip, her lead for Rigorath really can't do anything against a dark type, so we just need to start setting up a bunch of Hone Claws. Once we've got all of them set up, we can use a Tailwind to ensure we'll be faster than all of her Pokemon. And even better, this is the turn that we actually end up getting our berry triggered to get a load of health back. Thief will take out the Farigiraf in one, and Acrobatics will do the same to a Gardevoir. Spathra does get hit off with Quick Attack, however, it's too little too late as we one-shot it, but now our Tailwind peters out. Luckily, we're faster than a Florges, so all we need to do is one more Thief, and we've won the 7th gym battle. There really is nothing between Gym 7 and Gym 8 though, so let us get right on to taking on Grusha and his Ice types. We're going to start off with Klawf, who actually manages to miss Rock Blast, allowing Frostmoth to get up the Tailwind we didn't want to be up. Because of this, I'm not staying in, so I switch into Orthworm, who tanks the Blizzard pretty beautifully. It gets hit again, knocking it low, but we had a berry to give ourselves some health, and now we can set up a Sandstorm. With the Sandstorm up, we've got some extra defense when we switch into Klawf, meaning it will survive the Blizzard, but its Anger Shell will go off. And on top of that, it's the turn the Tailwind peters out, allowing us to just one-shot it with one hit of Rock Blast. Beartic, unfortunately, is gonna follow the same fate, except it takes us 3. And then we get to Titan, who obviously, we missed again. And then to rub salt in the wound, it ends up critting us. Right, fine. Great Tusk, you come out and finish this off. We can Brick Break, almost taking it out as an Ice Spinner knocks us above half health. Then, obviously, we're going to finish it off on the next turn. Alteria's then going to Terrastalize, and we're going to Brick Break, knocking it to a Sliver as it misses a Hurricane. I ended up missing 2 90% moves, so I'm taking it. This time, we get the win off nice and easy, even though it should have been a sweep with Klawf. 8 gym badges, though, that's pretty cool. We need to go a bit further, though, so we've got to end up taking on Team Star. First one being Ortega. We're going to lead Orthworm, who can Iron Head into the Azumarill, doing decent damage, but an Aquadale does about the same to us. We can then Earthquake, but it does about the same, and obviously it keeps hitting into us. Gonna hit it again on the next turn, and this time it knocks us into the red, allowing us to heal up with our berry, but it does set it up for the next turn to be a KO for the bulky boy. Next up is Dashbun, who uses a Crunch and does get the defense lowered as we hit it with an Iron Head. Because of that defense drop, I don't want to stay in though, so we're going to switch into Klawf, who also gets its defense dropped. Now, I'm expecting it to try and use a Mud Blast because we're a rock type, so we're going to switch back into Orthworm. Unfortunately, it wasn't, so we do get hit with a Play Rough. Back into Klawf, who is a much better counter for this. And the incoming Play Rough on the next turn does activate our Anger Shell, but we're going to use Iron Defense here. Next turn is going to be good though, so we can use a Rock Blast and finish it off, leading us into the Wigglytuff. With Wigglytuff, we use Rock Blast and thankfully get the 5 hits, meaning it will go down here. And thanks to the speed boost, we're faster than the Starmobile, so can knock it for about a quarter of its health. However, obviously, we go down to a Steel Roller. Orthworm is going to be our saving grace here, which is why it sucks when it gets hit with a Steel Roller and gets confused. Luckily, we hit through it though, and Iron Head does awesome damage. Next out is going to be the Bomberdier, who does get hit with a Confuse Ray, but luckily again, we hit through and hit it with an Acrobatics. It hits us very heavily with a Magical Torque, but we have knocked it within a sliver, meaning that we can see the end post. Unfortunately, we are going to go down here, though. This leads it up to Great Tusk, who gets Confuse Raid and luckily hits through, and we manage to finish it off. But it's not the only Team Star member we have to deal with. Let us get into the Airy fight. She ends up leading Toxicroak, who shudders, and rightfully so, as we attack into it with an acrobatics one-shot in it. Annihilate. The bugger does just manage to hold on, and that's going to allow it to use a close combat against us, doing pretty heavy damage. Obviously, I'm not going to let it get another hit off against us, though. Persimmon just hasn't got that bulk to it, so we can take that out with ease. Then we have her Lucario, and I'm gonna acrobatics into it purely because I want some damage off, as I know nothing can take an Aura Sphere from it. So Bomberdier already being out, it makes sense to get that bit of damage tick. And then switch into Orthworm, and that was silly as well because that will get taken out in one because Lucario's faster. I go into what I should have come into, being a Great Tusk, and obviously it goes down here. Then the Starmobile comes out, and it seems we end up having a game of chicken as she starts going for shift gears and I start going for bulk ups. Reason being, if you hit her, stamina will go off, raising her defense, so I need some hefty attack first. Eventually, I think we've done enough, so we go for an Earthquake, which obviously does awesome damage, and she wastes the final turn by using a shift gear, meaning we can use our Earthquake and obviously take it out. But I want another encounter before we go any further, so let us start taking on Dondozo. First stage is actually quite easy. If you take advantage of Hone Claws and 2 acrobatics, it will finish the beefy fish off. But the second stage, it's a bit bulkier, so let's see how that goes. We attack into it, doing a decent bit of damage. However, its body slam also hits us hard. Unfortunately for us, though, the Greedent is gonna miss here. We're obviously gonna hit into it again, and it does a bit more damage this turn, but Aquatail also does more damage to us. Thankfully, Greedent is tail whipping here. We can then use one more, knocking it into the yellow. However, it switched to Water Pulse here, which ends up confusing us. And Greedent tail whips yet again. I want to lose Bomberdier here, so we're going to switch into Orthworm, who obviously shakes off the body slam, and the takedown from Greedent almost finishes it off. Luckily, Orthworm's faster though, so we can end up using an Earthquake and taking it down. That's not the end though. We have to take on the next Titan Pokemon, being Tatsugiri. Somehow Arven heals us to full health, so at least we're in a good position, and we can acrobatics as it retaliates with an Icy Wind. This drops both our speed, but Greedent goes in with a takedown anyway. Now it's faster, it's gonna Icy Wind into us on the first turn, but we can both attack into it, knocking it into the yellow and quite low. Again, I don't want Bomberdier to go down, so we're gonna switch into Orthworm, but it was a mistake as it went for Taunt, so it would have been the end had we attacked. Luckily, Greedent did end up getting a bit of chip. Tatsugiri is then going to go for Muddy Water, finishing the Greedent off and doing awesome damage to us. However, it doesn't take us out, so we can Earthquake and win the battle. And although I would really like the Dondozo, unfortunately, the only one available for capture is going to be the Tatsugiri. All of that, though, has led us on to what can be the start of the finale against the Elite Four. First one, obviously, being Rika and his ground types. We're going to lead with Tatsugiri as he leads with Whiscash. We're going to hit it pretty heavy with a Surf as it hits us with an Earth Power, not doing too much. This means the next turn, obviously, we still outspeed and can finish it off with a Tidal Wave. Then next up is Donphan. This thing's got sturdy, so I decide just to go for an Icy Wind, which does more damage than I was expecting as it hits us with an Earthquake. We can then Surf, which is ideal as obviously it finishes it off. Unfortunately for us though, the Doug Trio will outspeed on the next turn and Earthquake us out of here. We switch into Great Tusk, and on this turn, the Doug Trio's going to set up a Sandstorm, but it doesn't manage to avoid our incoming Ice Spinner. Camerupt is then going to come out, but obviously the Fire typing makes it weak to an Earthquake, so we take it out with its own signature typing. Lonzai is then going to come out to Terastallize to get the world on his head. However, we're going to Ice Spinner and do awesome damage. It does use Toxic, but to be honest, we are not worried at this point. That means after we stall out a turn of Protect, we can end up using one last Ice Spinner and finishing this battle. Poppy might be a bit tougher though, so let's see if we can take down her steel types. We're gonna go first and use a bulk up, raising our attack and defense, as she is going to set up stealth rocks. We're gonna bulk up again, as I want some more defense, as the incoming player up does awesome damage even at +2. Yeah, well, it was a crit, so obviously it bypassed everything we did. And then decide to go for another bulk up, as without a crit it won't take us out. Unfortunately, it ends up getting the second crit in a row, which finishes Great Tusk off. Damn, that's some bad luck. The next best choice for this is gonna be Orthworm of all Pokemon. We're gonna use Earthquake against Copperaja, knocking it for more than half as it tries to high horsepower, getting us to full health. Obviously, this means on the next turn, it is going to go down. However, she sends out Bronzong, which has Levitate. Due to this, we're gonna have to switch into Bomberdier, who gets hit pretty heavily with the Iron Head. We can then use Thief on the next turn, knocking it just under half, as it can hit us with an Iron Head, knocking us to the red. Thankfully, because we're outspeeding though, we will take it down on the next turn. Next up is Magnezone, so I'm going to decide to use Parting Shot, which knocks its attack and special attack down while giving us a switch in. I choose to switch into Orthworm, who isn't going to get hit pretty heavily. However, a light screen is used anyway. Orthworm can then Earthquake. Unfortunately, it survives on Sturdy, allowing it to attack us and knock us pretty heavily. But next turn, it will go down. Corviknight comes out next, and we can't do much to it, so we're going to Iron Head as it hits us with a Body Press. We can then attack it again the next turn and knocking it to about a quarter, as it is going to take us down here. From here, we get a safe switch into Klawf, who can get a Rock Blast off for 5 hits, knocking it into the red. Iron Head also hits us heavy as well. Luckily, Rock Blast is all we need from here to be able to take the Corviknight out. And even though we got bad luck at the start, we are going to be able to get to her final Pokemon, being Tinkaton. We get a Rock Blast off, and we do manage to hit a fair decent amount of times. However, it doesn't even do half health. And a Gigaton Hammer is coming our way to wipe us off the map. I decide the best choice is to bring in Bomberdier. However, this was wrong, as it instantly goes down to the Stealth Rocks damage. This puts us on one Pokemon, being a Dragon type, and a player of almost takes us out. However, our Surf doesn't take it out either. Oh, that sucks. Therefore, we have to say goodbye to this run and Tatsugiri. Oh my god, it ended up missing a player off. That allows us to get an Icy Wind off, which, yeah, I knew I was going down, so I went for Icy Wind. Thankfully, it didn't miss, and we lowered their speed. You know what? A double crit is less likely than that missing. Therefore, I'm going to take it, and we'll take this win with one last serve. That was a rough time, but let's get on to an easy time, being Larry and his flying types. Unfortunately, turn 1, we are going to miss our Rock Blast, allowing Tropius to set up the Sun. Because of the Sun, not only is it faster than us now, it can hit us with a Solar Beam in one turn, almost taking us out. However, at least we hit the Rock Blast this turn and finish it off. Daraptor then comes out and it gets an Intimidate off, which sucks. But unfortunately for it, it cannot survive the Rock Blasts. Even if I hadn't a crit, 4 hits would have been enough to take it out though. Next up is Altaria, who we're going to finish off in the same way. Oricorio thinks it's cool, but obviously it's going down also. And then we get out to his Flamigo. Unfortunately, I made an error though, and Rock Blast is now at 0 PP. Meaning that I need to switch out against the Flamigo. Gonna switch into Bomberdier, as it has the best chance of surviving any attack that comes our way. But even then, the close combat does do a lot of damage. We outspeed, and thanks to our Rocky Payload ability, Rock Slide has Stab, so we can use that. It doesn't miss. We managed to win this battle. I wish it could have been a Klawf solo, but that was my fault. And all of that is going to lead us into the last of the Elite Four, being Hassel and his Dragon types. He's going to lead Noivern, who's going to attack us with a Super Fang, knocking us to half health. However, an Ice Spinner is more than enough to get rid of this bugger. Next up is Dragalge, and we're going to do that as well. However, it does manage to survive, and on top of that, its Poison Point goes off, poisoning us. Not that that matters though, as it is going to hit Hydro Pump and finish us off here. Come out now with Tatsugiri, who can get an Icy Wind off and take the Dragalge out. Then we have Flapple, who is thankfully slower than us, allowing us to get a Dragon Pulse off and one-shot in that. Next up is his Haxorus, and unfortunately for us, its Dragon Claw is gonna one-shot us here. Orthworm has that Steel typing though, so it will resist Dragon moves, so we'll go into that. It'll hit us with a Crunch, but it doesn't do too much, allowing us to use a Shed Tail, switching out and setting up a substitute. The Pokemon we're going to put behind it is going to be Bomberdier. Bomberdier can come from behind the sub and use an Acrobatics, doing awesome damage to the Haxorus. However, it's going to use, miss a Rock Tomb, should we say? And that means it's free for us to take it out on this following turn. Then, because we've still got the substitute up, Baxcalibur literally can't do anything to us, and any Pokemon will go down to 2 Acrobatics. So obviously, we end up winning this battle. All of that has led us up to this though, the Geeta battle. We're gonna lead Bomberdier because Espathra is a troublesome Pokemon. Dazzling Gleam does decent damage to us as we can hit into it with Acrobatics, but not enough to take it out. It's then gonna Reflect, which I was hoping it wouldn't, meaning our damage is halved so we don't take it out this turn. And on top of that, the next turn it hits us very heavily, and although we take it out, we're at a disadvantage because our physical attacks don't do much now. King Gambit's pretty scary because of that, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna Parting Shot out and go into Orthworm. Obviously, Stone Edge doesn't do much to him. We can then Iron Defense, which raises our defense as it kowtow cleaves into us, doing nothing. We're then gonna Iron Defense again, but this following kowtow cleave, unfortunately, is going to end up critting and doing major damage. We've got to just go for it. We go for an Earthquake, which doesn't do too much damage, but it's fine because the kowtow cleave can't. Oh my god, it crit again. 2 double crits in 2 battles. What the hell? Well, Orthworm's down, so we've got to bring in Great Tusk. Obviously, finish the King Gambit off with a Brick Break. Go-Go is then going to come out, and we can Ice Spinner, knocking it really low. However, it can Horn Leech us, getting some of that health back. However, nowhere near enough that it means we won't take it out on this turn. The loser is next, and we're going to Earthquake it, doing decent damage as a Liquidation knocks us very low. Expecting an Aqua Jet, I decided to switch out to Tatsugiri, but it went for Liquidation anyway, so we could have actually stayed in. Luckily, we will end up outspeeding, and a Dragon Pulse will end this little fish. Surf then almost takes out the Avalugg, but a Body Press knocks us very low. Obviously, Avalugg has no speed to it though, so we take it down this turn. Last up is her Glamora, who will Terastallize to become Rock type, and it's faster than us, so it's going to be able to get off a Dazzling Gleam. This gives us a free switch into Bomberdier, who we can use to get a Parting Shot off on and switch into Klawf. Unfortunately, Terra Blast still does amazing damage to Klawf. Expecting an Earth Power to be coming, we're going to switch into Bomberdier again, and obviously we call it and it doesn't affect us. This will let us get off a second Parting Shot, meaning we will be safe to bring Klawf in yet again. This time its Anger Shell ability was triggered though. This gives us that slight speed advantage, allowing us to use a Rock Blast and knock it to about half health. Unfortunately though, this is where Klawf is going to go down. He did what he needed to though, and now we can bring in Great Tusk. Because we've got damage, Great Tusk can now use an Earthquake, and it will be a one-shot, solidifying our victory. That's not the end of it here though. We now have to take on Professor Clavel. We're gonna lead with Tatsugiri, and we're gonna end up using a Nasty Plot as Oranguru uses Yawn. We can then Nasty Plot again as Oranguru is going to set up a Reflex, but obviously we're using special attack, so it doesn't matter. And when we go to sleep, we had a Chesto just to get rid of it. And then unfortunately for Clavel, his team isn't that strong once we're set up with a Dragon Water type, so we end up sweeping through his entire team with ease. That's then going to lead us into Penny. However, Penny also has a flaw. If you have a Dark type, she can't do too much to you. This means you can essentially set up as much as you want to get your attack as high as you need. And if you're Bomberdier, you can set up a Tailwind to ensure that Jolteon won't outspeed you. Then, who would have thought a 110 base power move would one-shot everything from here on out? Well, the Jolteon did get Rock Slid, but it counts regardless. Penny was a joke for this run. Next up on the chopping list is Arven. Can the Titans get revenge for all he put them through? Let us see right now. First turn, we Great Tusk. We're going to use Rapid Spin, and he's going for Psychic Fangs, which is great. We had a berry equipped just in case he was going for Body Slam, as we didn't want to get paralyzed. But just like Penny, all we need to do is set up a load of bulk ups. With that Rapid Spin, we outspeed everything. And obviously, all of Arven's Pokemon will go down here. We only needed one Titan to take it down, which is beautiful justice. All of that is going to end up leading us into the Nemona battle. Unfortunately for Nemona, you do the exact same thing as you did against Arven. It can't really do much to a Great Tusk. Even with crits, it's not doing much damage to you. It was a bit anticlimactic for sure. However, she got the rain advantage the first battle, and that's the only reason she won in my eyes. Well, that is going to lead us on to Area 0, where we have to face the final battle being against AI Sada. She's gonna start off with Slitherwing, but we're leading Bomberdier, who can acrobatics, obviously one-shotting it because it's 4 times effective. Screamtail then comes out, and it's gonna get a play rough off against us, which does pretty decent damage, but our acrobatics does pretty awesome damage to it as well. Knowing a play rough's coming, we're gonna switch out and into Orthworm. Orthworm is gonna get hit with a Drain Punch, but it doesn't do too much, and then the Iron Head almost finishes Screamtail off. That turn repeats itself, however, this time the Screamtail will go down. I then thought I would be slower and expected Brute Bonnet to go for a ground move, so I tried to Shed Tail. Obviously, I'm faster and it fails, and then it goes for a payback anyway. One Pokemon that can take a payback beautifully is going to be Bomberdier, though. However, it's going to Sucker Punch us from here, which does awesome damage, but our acrobatics knocks it low. I don't want to get hit with another one because it'll take me out, and it's obviously always priority, so I'll just set up some Hone Claws and a Tailwind until it's out of PP. This is going to allow us to take out Brute Bonnet. Then Flutter Mane is going to come out, and obviously we're going to take that down also. However, her next Pokemon is Sandy Shocks, and this thing resists my only 2 attacking moves. Therefore, when I go for an acrobatics, I only do just over half, allowing it to Power Gem and take us out. We're going to bring out our friend Tatsugiri next, and it's going to get hit with an Earth Power, doing decent damage, but we can end up using a Surf and finishing it off. Then we have Roaring Moon come out, whose Dragon Claw wipes the floor with us. I trust in my boy Klawf, though. He manages to tank an Earthquake, activating the Anger Shell, and allowing us to hit off with a Rock Blast. The first one of which being a crit, and literally ending up with us being able to take it out. Had that first one not crit, Klawf would have gone down here, which would have sucked. But we finished it in the same way we started it, with our crabby little boy.